The whole class laughed when he said Harvard, until a Harvard dean walked in asking for him by name. You want to go where? The question didn't come from another student. It came from the front of the room, from a grown man standing by the whiteboard with a stack of old textbooks under one arm and sarcasm dripping from his mouth. Jaylen Brooks stood frozen beside the projector cart, fingers gently clutching the edge of his vision board. His heart was already thumping before he'd even spoken, but now it dropped somewhere beneath the linoleum tiles of room 213. Mr. Whitaker squinted at Jaylen's board like it had personally offended him. Harvard? He repeated, his voice rising an octave. As in, the Harvard? The class erupted into low laughter. Not cruel exactly, more confused. A few chuckles, a cough, one girl whispering, "Wait, is he serious?" Jaylen didn't answer. He just nodded softly, as if any more confidence might make the floor give out underneath him. The Harvard logo sat boldly in the center of his board, cut from a brochure he'd printed at the library, surrounded by photos of law books, the Supreme Court, and one image of a young black lawyer standing at a podium. A dream. Nothing more, but nothing less. Mr. Whitaker clicked his tongue. Maybe try aiming a little lower, huh? He said with a sideways grin, one hand resting lazily in his pocket. A dream's gotta be at least kinda based on reality. A couple more snickers trickled out. One kid covered his face. Another pretended to scribble Harvard on his own board, then burst into quiet laughter. Jaylen stared down at the glue-streaked poster in his hands. Suddenly, the photos looked childish. The crimson Harvard seal felt like a joke. His palms were sweaty. He cleared his throat, tried to speak, but his voice wouldn't come. Not one word. He walked back to his seat in silence. All right, Mr. Whitaker said, flipping through the roster. Next up, Alicia. Jaylen sat down in the far back corner. Same place he always sat. Quiet, out the way, where teachers usually forgot he was there. But this time, he kinda wished they had. He could feel it. The side glances, the stifled laughter, the whispery comments that weren't really whispers at all. He swallowed hard, blinking at the poster on his desk, now face down. Maybe he had messed up. Maybe this was all too big for someone like him. Maybe that's just not where people like him end up. But before that thought could root itself too deep, something unexpected happened. The door creaked open. Heads turned. Mr. Whitaker glanced up, annoyed at the interruption. A tall woman stepped inside. Black blazer, white blouse, silver hoop earrings. Confident, clean energy, like she knew exactly where she was going and why. Excuse me, she said. I'm looking for Jaylen Brooks. Mr. Whitaker blinked. Sorry, who? Jaylen Brooks, she repeated, eyes scanning the room until they landed on the back corner. Every head turned. Jaylen sat stiff, confused. He raised his hand hesitantly. The woman smiled. I'm Dr. Camille Howard, Associate Dean of Admissions at Harvard University. The room dropped into full silence. She turned to Mr. Whitaker. I'd like a moment with Jaylen, if that's all right. The silence grew heavier. Mr. Whitaker's mouth parted like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Just a dry nod. Jaylen stood slowly, heart pounding for an entirely different reason now. It didn't feel real, but Dr. Howard's warm gaze met his like she'd known him all her life, like he belonged in this moment. He followed her out of the classroom. Behind him, the whispers didn't come right away this time. The class just sat there, stunned. And Mr. Whitaker, he didn't say a word. But before that hallway door closed behind Jaylen, he glanced back once and saw something he'd never seen on Mr. Whitaker's face before. Silence, and maybe, just maybe, shame. By fifth period, everybody knew. Jaylen walked into the cafeteria like a spotlight was following him, even though he kept his head low and tray tighter than usual against his chest. His usual spot in the far corner suddenly felt too far, too exposed. Yo, Harvard! Someone called from a table near the soda machine. Save me a dorm bed! A few kids laughed, not mocking exactly, just unsure of how to handle what they'd seen. Jaylen offered a tight smile and kept walking. He sat down next to his best friend, Trayvon Gaskins, who'd been his dude since elementary school, back when they both thought being an astronaut meant you got to jump on trampolines for a living. Trayvon slid a juice box his way without saying anything. You good? He asked after a moment. Jaylen nodded. Yeah. Silence sat between them, thick like peanut butter. Then Trayvon leaned in. What did she say? Jaylen hesitated. She said she'd read my essay. Wait, what essay? The one I wrote for that summer prep thing. Miss Patel must have sent it in. I didn't even know. Trayvon's eyebrows shot up. So she came here to tell you? Jaylen nodded slowly. Trayvon shook his head, smiling. That's wild. Like a real Harvard person in our school. Jaylen gave a weak chuckle. Yeah. But even as they talked, Jaylen could feel the other eyes on him. The cafeteria wasn't loud today. It was curious. It was watching. He looked across the room and saw Alicia from his class, whispering something to another girl. They both turned toward him, then quickly looked away when he caught them. A guy at the table near the window raised his brow and mouthed something to a friend. Jaylen couldn't hear it, but he didn't have to. And then, like clockwork, the voice that made his stomach clench. Guess I gotta tell my kid to start dreaming about Mars, Mr. Whitaker said from behind them. Apparently, anything's possible, now. He stood in the lunch line a few feet away, talking to Coach Reiner. He didn't say Jaylen's name, but he didn't have to. The timing, the tone, it was for him. Jaylen stared down at his tray. The chicken nuggets had gone cold. Trayvon clenched his jaw. Man, he's just mad someone noticed you before him. Jaylen didn't answer. He didn't want to give Whitaker's words power, but they still rang loud in his head. That sarcastic tone, the same one he'd used during the vision board presentation, it stuck like gum in your hair. Hard to ignore. Harder to forget. Later, back in class, Whitaker acted like nothing happened. He was all business, talking about Civil War timelines and Reconstruction Acts. But Jaylen noticed how every so often the man would glance toward him, quick, tight looks, like he was trying to figure out a puzzle he hadn't seen coming. Jaylen kept his eyes on his notebook. He wrote down everything, even stuff he already knew, anything to keep from looking up and catching more stares. And still, the questions burned under his skin. Why'd he say that? Why does he care where I apply? Is it really that hard to believe I could go there? The questions hurt more than the stares. That night, Jaylen lay awake longer than usual. He stared at the paper Harvard seal pinned above his desk. It looked different now. He wasn't sure if it felt bigger or smaller. All he knew was that it didn't feel fake anymore. But even with that, something else was there too. A quiet voice, sitting in the back of his mind, whispering, "What if they're all right? What if you mess this up?" But then he remembered how Dr. Howard had looked at him, like he already belonged, and suddenly, that voice didn't seem so loud anymore. The apartment always smelled like lavender and lemon when his mom was home. Jaylen dropped his backpack near the door, kicked off his shoes, and sank into the couch. The cushions gave in like old friends, soft, familiar, worn just enough to fit him right. "Jay?" his mom called from the kitchen. "That you?" "Yeah." She appeared around the corner holding a plastic container full of prepped lunches, her scrubs wrinkled and tired-looking, ponytail slightly crooked, face still glowing. That was Brianna Brooks, tired on the outside, iron on the inside. "How was school?" she asked, popping open the fridge. Jaylen hesitated. She caught it immediately. "What happened?" He shrugged. "Nothing, just weird day." She shut the fridge and leaned on the counter. "Weird how?" Jaylen glanced at her, debating how much to say. "You remember that Harvard prep program thing Ms. Patel told me about? The one I told you to go for?" "Yeah." "Well, someone from Harvard came to school today." Brianna's eyebrows shot up. "What? Who?" "Associate Dean, Dr. Camille Howard." Brianna blinked like her son had just told her the president stopped by for lunch. "What did she say?" Jaylen finally smiled, just a little. "She said she read my essay, and she wants to talk more about next steps." Brianna covered her mouth. Jay, that's amazing." He shrugged again, more bashful than proud. "Yeah, I guess." But his mom didn't let it slide. She walked over and pulled him into a tight hug, like she was trying to press the moment into his chest. "I'm proud of you, baby. So proud." Jaylen let himself relax for a second. His mom always made things real. Her pride hit different, because she knew how much he wanted this. She backed away and studied his face. "So what's the weird part?" Jaylen hesitated. "Mr. Whitaker. He made a joke about it, like a mean joke, in class, in front of everyone." Brianna's jaw tightened just a bit. "That man ever do anything but talk slick?" Jaylen shook his head. "Said Harvard's not realistic. Before Dr. Howard came, I think he thought I was just being dumb. Brianna exhaled through her nose. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't curse, but her silence was its own statement. That's exactly why you need to go, she finally said. Some folks only believe in ceilings. They can't see past their own limits, so they try to hand them out like party favors. Jaylen chuckled. You've been watching motivational videos again? She smiled. I don't need those. I got you. He looked down, a little embarrassed, but the kind of embarrassed that feels like sunshine. His mom always knew what to say. That night, after she went to bed, Jaylen sat at his desk, surrounded by notes, articles, and torn-out pages from old magazines. His room didn't have much, just a mattress, a small shelf, and a second-hand desk they got from a yard sale, but every inch of wall was filled. Quotes from Toni Morrison, Barack Obama, Brian Stevenson, images of college campuses, printouts of scholarship deadlines, a note from Ms. Patel that said, "Your brain is a gold mine. Keep digging." And right in the center, tacked up just above eye level, was the Harvard crest. He stared at it for a long time. It used to feel like a symbol of a dream too big for him. Now, it felt like something possible, not guaranteed, not promised, but possible. But just as he was feeling lifted by the idea, the doubt tried sneaking back in. And Jaylen realized something. It wasn't just about Harvard anymore. It was about proving that someone like him belonged anywhere he wanted to be. Monday morning came with a cold drizzle, the kind that made the school hallways smell like wet sneakers and floor wax. Jaylen moved quietly, slipping through the crowds with his hoodie halfway up, earbuds in, playing nothing, just a shield. He stopped by his locker, swapping out books, when a soft voice interrupted. Jaylen? He turned. Ms. Patel stood there with her coffee mug and a warm smile, the one that never felt forced. She taught English 2 doors down from Mr. Whitaker, young, sharp, and always 3 steps ahead of every student in her class. Can I talk to you for a sec? She asked. Jaylen nodded. They stepped into her empty classroom. Posters lined the walls. Maya Angelou, Lorraine Hansberry, August Wilson. Her room always smelled like cinnamon and paper. I wanted to tell you something, she said, sipping from her mug. I sent in your essay. Jaylen blinked. Wait. What? The one you wrote last semester about growing up here. I polished the grammar, added a cover letter, and submitted it to the Crimson Futures program. You didn't know because I wasn't sure it would go anywhere, but... She smiled. Apparently it did. Jaylen's eyes widened. That's how Dr. Howard found me? Ms. Patel nodded. You earned that attention, Jaylen. I just pushed the door a little. He looked down, unsure of what to say. Thank you. You don't owe me thanks, she said. Just promise me one thing. What? Don't let anyone make your dreams smaller because they stopped dreaming a long time ago. Her words stuck like glue. That afternoon, Jaylen sat through Mr. Whitaker's class like normal, or at least tried to. He could feel Whitaker watching him. Less smug now, more cautious. When class ended, Jaylen stayed back to organize his binder. Most kids rushed out, but Whitaker didn't leave. You got a minute? The teacher asked, voice low. Jaylen froze. Sure. Whitaker walked over, leaned on the edge of the desk like he was trying to look relaxed. So, Harvard, huh? Jaylen didn't answer. Whitaker scratched his chin. Didn't think they recruited freshmen. Jaylen kept his tone steady. They don't. It's for a summer prep thing. Still, Whitaker said, that's impressive. Silence hung for a beat too long. Whitaker sighed. Listen, I may have been a little harsh last week. Didn't mean anything by it. Jaylen stared at him. I've just seen a lot of kids set themselves up for failure, you know? Reach too far, fall hard. I thought maybe, well, I figured if I kept things realistic, it might help. Jaylen raised his eyes. Or maybe you just didn't believe I could do it. Whitaker opened his mouth, then closed it. Jaylen grabbed his backpack. You didn't have to say anything, but you did, in front of everybody. Whitaker stood up. Maybe I was wrong. Jaylen didn't reply. He didn't need to, because suddenly, the weight of Whitaker's words didn't hold the same power they used to. Later that evening, Jaylen and his mom sat at the dinner table eating chicken and rice, cheap and simple but hot and good. She scrolled through her phone and smiled wide. They just sent the official invite, she said. Look. Jaylen took the screen. There it was, Harvard's seal in the email header. His name, the dates, the schedule. He put the phone down slowly. His fingers trembled. "I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted. His mom raised her eyebrows. "Jaylen, who is ever ready for their dreams? You don't wait to feel ready. You walk anyway." He looked at her, really looked, and nodded. But even as the dream opened wider, Jaylen knew the real journey wasn't just about Harvard. It was about facing every voice, every stare, every doubt, and walking forward anyway. The Thursday it happened, everything felt regular, almost boring. First bell rang. The weather was dry, sky overcast. Jaylen got to school early like always, sat through science without blinking, and took quiet notes in math. Nothing screamed special. No signs pointed to what was coming. Third period rolled around. U.S. history. Mr. Whitaker stood by the board, writing key dates from the Reconstruction era. The room buzzed low with tired energy. Jaylen sat in his usual back corner, head down, mind elsewhere. He barely heard the knock. 3 soft taps. Whitaker paused mid-sentence and turned. The door opened. In stepped Dr. Camille Howard, but this time she wasn't in a blazer. She wore a dark green dress with flat shoes and a leather folio tucked under one arm. Same confidence, same quiet authority. Every step she took seemed to hush the room even more. Whitaker squinted. "Can I help you?" "I believe so," she said. "I'm looking for Jaylen Brooks." All heads turned at once. Jaylen's heart slammed in his chest. Dr. Howard spotted him and smiled. "There you are." Whitaker coughed. "Sorry, you're..." "Dr. Camille Howard, Associate Dean of Admissions, Harvard." The name dropped like a stone into water. No ripples, just immediate stillness. Whitaker cleared his throat, standing straighter. "Ah, yes, I remember. We met last week. I didn't realize you were visiting again." "Today's visit is a little more personal," she replied, not breaking eye contact with Jaylen. "We have some updates for Mr. Brooks and would like to speak with him privately." Whitaker hesitated. "He's in the middle of class." "Just 10 minutes, she said. "That all right?" Jaylen didn't wait for an answer. He grabbed his notebook and stood slowly, all eyes tracking his every move. One kid whispered, "Yo, this is wild." Dr. Howard held the door open. Jaylen stepped into the hallway, trying not to tremble. The moment the door clicked shut behind them, he turned to her. "You came all the way back?" he asked, barely above a whisper. "I told you we'd stay in touch, didn't I?" Jaylen gave a small nod. "Yeah, but I didn't expect this." She smiled. "Jaylen, I've been reading essays and applications for years. Yours stood out. Not because you wrote about Harvard, but because you wrote like someone who already knew what kind of man he wanted to be. We don't see that very often." He didn't know what to say. Every word caught in his throat. "We're offering you a full scholarship to the summer program," she added. "Travel, housing, meals, covered. We've even paired you with a student mentor who grew up in Ohio, too." Jaylen stared, wide-eyed. "I'm really going?" "You're going," she said. His knees felt weak. For a moment, he leaned against the wall. His mind raced with images. Walking the Harvard yard, sitting in real lecture halls, meeting other students who believed in more than just surviving. Dr. Howard touched his shoulder. "You belong there, Jaylen. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." He nodded, breathing slowly. "Thank you." She stepped back. "You can head back in whenever you're ready." Before she left, Jaylen stopped her. "Dr. Howard?" She turned. "Why me?" Her smile softened. "Because the world's full of people waiting for someone to tell them no. You had the nerve to tell yourself yes." And with that, she walked away. Jaylen stood in the hallway alone for a moment. Then slowly, he opened the door and stepped back into class. Every face turned to him. Mr. Whitaker looked like he wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. No sarcasm, no smirk. Jaylen returned to his seat. He didn't need to say a thing. But in that silence, everybody heard it loud and clear. Jaylen Brooks wasn't just aiming high, he was already rising. For the rest of the period, nobody said much. Mr. Whitaker tried to keep teaching like nothing had happened, but his voice had lost its edge. His words came slower, his pacing tighter. The same man who used to fill the room with sarcasm and smugness suddenly seemed unsure of how to stand in it. Jaylen sat in his seat, eyes focused on the board, but he wasn't really reading anymore. because in that moment, something had shifted, and not just for him. When the bell rang, the room didn't erupt into its usual chaos. The shuffle of backpacks and scraping chairs felt slower, more thoughtful. A few students stopped by Jaylen's desk on the way out. "Hey," one girl said quietly. "That was cool. You deserve it." A guy Jaylen barely knew fist-bumped him. "Do your thing, man." Even Alicia, who hadn't said much since Vision Board Day, gave him a small nod as she walked by. That nod didn't fix everything, but it meant something. Jaylen stood up to leave, but before he could reach the door, Mr. Whitaker called out, "Jaylen?" He stopped, turned slowly. The teacher looked older, not in years, but in weight, like the moment had put something heavy on him. "I just wanted to say, congratulations." Jaylen nodded, waiting. Whitaker took a step closer. "And I was wrong. About you." Jaylen didn't gloat. He didn't smirk. He didn't even say, "I told you so." He just replied, "I know," and walked out. In the hallway, he found Ms. Patel waiting near the lockers. She gave him a wide smile, her phone in one hand. "You ready to tell the world yet?" she joked. Jaylen smiled. "Not yet, but soon." She paused. "You know this means something, right? Not just for you. For every kid in this building watching. Every teacher who needed to see it. Every person who forgot what it looks like when a dream walks in the room." Jaylen thought about that all day. That night, at home, he sat at the kitchen table filling out the paperwork for the Harvard program. His mom hovered behind him like a bodyguard, peeking over his shoulder, correcting small typos, making sure every box was checked. When they finished, she stood back, arms crossed, and smiled. "You ready for this?" Jaylen looked up. "Yeah, I think I am." She leaned in, kissed the top of his head, and whispered, "Then go take it. All of it." Weeks later, Jaylen stepped off the plane in Boston with a carry-on bag, 3 books, and a folder full of dreams. He walked the campus like he belonged, because now he knew he did. In one of his first seminars, the professor asked students to describe what brought them there. Some talked about legacy, others mentioned awards. When it was Jaylen's turn, he kept it simple. "Some people said I didn't belong here," he said, looking up. "So I decided to show them what it looks like when you show up anyway." Back at home, the school framed his acceptance into the summer program and placed it in the main office, right next to the attendance awards and football trophies. Mr. Whitaker didn't say much in the following months, but he started listening more. He stopped making comments when kids talked about big goals. And once, quietly, someone caught him telling another student, "You know, a guy from here got into Harvard's summer program last year. Anything's possible." Some people only see limits because they stopped dreaming. But others, like Jaylen, remind the world that no ceiling can hold a mind that refuses to stay small. Just because someone doesn't believe in your dream doesn't mean it's not real. Sometimes, it's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving you were right to believe in yourself all along. So, if you're sitting on a dream that feels too big, don't shrink it. Stand up, speak it out loud, walk anyway,